Hello, welcome to the channel. Today we have a Dallas Scala. This is from the 60s, probably mid 60s I would have thought. Don't know a great lot about this one, but we are going to take a look at it. It's a single-ended amplifier, and I suspect the speaker is blown in this. So let's just look at the controls there. Simple enough. We've got a couple of channels, volume, or a couple of inputs, and a volume for each one, and then we've just got a tone control. Guessing that's the on-off switch there. Let's just turn it round and have a look at the back, and you can see that this amp's had some new screws in the back. Looks like the old ones have just worn out where they originally were, or that one has anyway. And there's another hole there, some holes here, I'm not sure what they're about. So we're going to have a look at this amp, check it out, make sure that there's nothing on it that's majorly wrong. If the speaker's blown, we're going to have to find another speaker, but we're also going to fit a jack socket on this so it can be used on a cabinet, and when we've got that fitted we shall put it on the 4x12 and have a listen. But to start off with, we need to get the back off. Right, we've got the back off and we're inside. Let's just see if we can get this into a bit of a position where we can see inside it. So we've got a Jensen speaker. Obviously this amp had an elliptical speaker, and you can see the bottom and the top there. That seems okay to me. But this amp has got some distortion on it, because I did plug this in briefly and have a bit of a go on it, and it sounded quite good, apart from when you really leaned on it, it began to just clip, and it was a bit of an unpleasant, like there was something loose in the speaker, or the speaker was scraping, the cone was scraping. See, it's had a recap here, and yeah, that's all okay. That's good, saved me a job. Right, so we've got this out on the bench now. We can have a look. So we've got Mullard. You can see there's a Mullard EL84 6BQ5. Let's have a look what's under here. A bit hard to get this thing to stand up, really. It's a very strange chassis. What we've got here, that's another Mullard. So yeah, Mullard ECC, oh sorry, you can't see that. Mullard ECC83 12x7. We'll test those just to make sure that they're all good. So let's have a look. So we've got there's a couple of new capacitors. Let's just get this down on there and see if we can hone in a bit closer, get some more light on as well. So we've got a couple of capacitors here and here that's been replaced. So I'm guessing one of those will be a bypass capacitor. That's probably the cathode bypass capacitor on the EL84 for a guess. So that's good, they've been changed. And we've got these couple here, which I've tracked these through. So that's the smoothing for the screen on the EL84 pin 9 grid 2. That was the selenium rectifier. That's been disconnected, and that's now being rectified from there, so that's good. What else? So this capacitor still remains, and this capacitor is the main smoothing cap on node 1. This yellow section of that has been snipped off, which indicates that that's probably failed, which is why those capacitors there have been added to smooth the screen. So at a glance here, I don't really see anything that could be causing this distortion, when it's taken. Maybe that speaker's just not up to the job, but it certainly seems okay. So I think at this point the only thing that concerns me on this amp is this capacitor here. It's very old. I can't see a date on it, and only half of it is working. And it is, what is it? It's 50 plus, is it a 50 50 50 at 350 that? Yes. So that's a little concern. Some soldering there that maybe needs to be addressed, but nothing major, is it that? Nothing major at all. So I think I'm going to run this up on the 4x12 and just have a listen and see if it's got a clear signal on there. And then if it has, then we know it's really down to the speaker. If not, then we're going to have to start looking elsewhere. But to be fair on this amplifier, most of the work on this has been done. Right, so we're going to change this capacitor in this Dallas Scala. So we had two 22 microfarads, 350 volts on there. One of those was feeding the screen, the other one's feeding the plates on the preamp tube. So I've removed the 22 and I'm going to put in here, just have a look, I'm going to put in this 50 plus 50, and then this amp will be fully recapped. And we're going to connect that, bring a wire from one of the sections on that 50-50 and just bring it down to that point there where I've just cut that off, that 22 off. Right, we fitted this can cap and we fired it up. It runs very nice. So I've checked the bias on it, and we've got these figures. So we've got 269 volts plate to cathode. This amp's cathode biased. 8.3 volts drop, and it's that, I think that resistor is 190 ohms, but it measures 196. It's a bit hard to tell. It's got a bit faded over the years. So we need to find the calculator, and here it is again, the very large calculator. So let's see. So we have got 8.3 divided by 196. That gives us 42 milliamps. We take away 5% for the screens, and then we times that by 269. And that gives us 10.82. That's absolutely fine. 10.82. That'll do me. That's near enough. So yes. So I think what we're going to do now with this amplifier is I'm going to take this chassis and I'm going to rig it up to the 4x12, and we're going to have a listen and just see if it's got a nice clear tone. I mean, I didn't change this because, you know, that might be causing some distortion or problems. I changed it really because it's just old, and half of it's blown and half of it isn't. So it's just easier to have both plate and screen onto the one can. And while I was changing that, it didn't take 5 minutes just to clip that other one out and run a wire up to it, and that should be much better. Right, let's give this a blast. Right, we've got this Dallas Scala on the 4x12, and the first thing you notice is it's quite noisy. So we've got this in channel 1. This tone control on here is a bit strange, because when you turn it up, the amp starts to clip. So we need to have a look at that. this amp is loud, seriously loud, and obviously does clip quite nicely when it's very noisy indeed. A lot of the noise drops off when we drop the tone caps. A very strange tone control, that. So I'm wondering on this amp, for one thing, if it's got a center tap on the heaters. That's a lot of hum. So I'm going to explore that and see if we can put a virtual center tap on this amp, see if we can quieten it down a bit. The other thing, I'm going to check the schematic and just make sure that these capacitors that are in here, so the coupling capacitor, the bypass capacitor on the first stage there, and the bypass capacitor on this on the output tube, just to make sure they're the correct values. Because this amp is, I mean, don't get me wrong, we want this amp to break up when it's turned up, but it doesn't have much clean headroom, so that's something else we could address. So let's have it back on the bench, and we'll look into this hum first. Right, so I've been having a look at this filament wiring on here, and I've got a couple of on the transformer there. You can just about see this wire here. And then this is the other side of the filament winding that goes to ground. Now I'll follow that wire here, this one, which goes to that trace there, and then goes to pins 5 on there, pin 5, and then pin 4 is to ground. Look there. So we've almost got a ground, it's almost like we've got a ground loop there going on. Don't know whether we have or not, but it's certainly not great. And then we've got this tube, which is also going, same thing, being grounded here, and then it's going through these, I can't think which one, there, that one there, along to there, and then it goes on, yes, to there. So that's the problem we've got there. So I think what I want to do with this is I want to cut those traces there, and the trace to pin 9 there, and I also want to cut this trace, remove this wire from here. Then I want to wire straight onto these sockets using some cable from those terminals, which is twisted cable, then onto this one, and then on here I want to do a virtual center tap, and I think that'll quieten this amp down. It certainly won't be any worse, will it? Because it is very noisy indeed. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to cut those traces, and I'm going to rewire this up properly and make a nice job of it. So I've rewired the tubes and I've cut the traces, and now I've just got the virtual centre tap to put on. So that's what we've got without the virtual centre tap, and that now is flat out. And just listen to how quiet it is when you turn it down. So that's tons quieter now than it was before. And now we've just got that at menial volume. There's a little bit of hum on it, but when you consider just how this is laid out, it's, you know, it's a wonder it's even that quiet. The tube's just coming out there. Right, I had the ground tacked on with a jumper, and now I've got that ground secured properly now. So now I've got this amp running quiet, I'm now going to turn my attention to try and give it a little bit more headroom. So we've got on this first stage a 25 microfarad cap for the bypass capacitor on that first stage. And I've got a feeling that on the schematic that the other volume is going through, is that second stage, or whether they're both going. I'll have to check that on the schematic, you know, and just see how this is wired. I know the volumes are before the grid, which is normally a bit of a no-no, but I can't go too mad on this because it's PC board, so we are struggling to to change too much on this. But I'm gonna lower this 25 microfarad cap and see if we can generate a bit more headroom. And I'm gonna trim this either side, and then I'm gonna jumper one in. We're gonna take it on the 4x12, and we are going to see if we can get this amp to sound just a bit crisper with a bit more top end and a bit more headroom before it breaks up. Right, so I've got a 2.2 microfarad capacitor on that first stage now. The problem with this amp is that the volume controls are wired before the grid on the first stage. So we're not actually, as we turn the volumes down, we can't shut down the signal. So you've got noise no matter what you do with this amp. I mean, it's very quiet compared to what it was. But this gain is this tone, it acts like a gain, and when you turn it full up, it starts to make the amp clip. It's very strange how that tone control's wired. This amp is so loud. So now with that cap on, it's much brighter. less tone on it than we had before. Just seems to be when you strike the bottom notes. So that sounds much sweeter. Now I've got a 150 nanofarad cap, so I'm going to try that next. See, now the amp's got a lot more headroom. The problem is with this, it has got a small speaker. I think it's only 6 or 8 inches. So this amp obviously is not going to sound like it does on a 4x12. So, but if we can get it sounding clean on here, then we should be fine. It should, you know, on the speaker it shouldn't be too bad. Now it's much more sparkly and bright. See how that acts as like a gain, because it's wired straight to the grid. Capacitor on there now, you don't have to turn the tone up as far. That's flat out now. I think that sounds much better. I mean, it's not as gutsy as it was, but you can't have that much guts, so a small 6 or 8 inch speaker, it just becomes a bit farty. So I think I'm going to solder that 150 nanofarad in there. Because I think that sounds quite sweet like that. It has took away, you know, it's increased the headroom, it's took away a little bit of the volume, but the amp's now just not, it just did not sound great when it was turned up and when this tone control was turned up. At least now we can get that up. increases the volume. Right, so let's try it on its own speaker now. We'll get back in its case and give it a blast. Right, we've got this Dallas Scala back in its case, and you can hear now it's much quieter. The humming's gone. We've obviously got the white noise in the background, which we can't turn down because the volumes are before the inputs. Sorry, the volumes are before the first stage on the preamp tube, but that's much quieter now. And that horrible breaking up tone has now gone as well. You see now I've turned that tone full up. The amp's beginning to break up, so that tone control is acting a bit like a gain control. If we turn that down, try the other input. Now the amp's flat out now. See, we're getting some nice break up there. It's just when you turn that tone control up. When you turn that up to full, if this was my amp, I'd disconnect that tone control. It's a weird thing. Try the neck pickup in single coil. Single neck pickup in humbucker. So there we have it, the Dallas Scala. Not done a great deal to this amp really, we've just rewired the filaments to make it quieter, and we've changed that coupling cap to 150 nanofarad from 25 microfarad just to tame this amp down a bit and give it a little bit more headroom. So that'll do it for this one. So thanks for watching, and you all take care, and I'll see you all in another video. Bye bye for now.